G'day team, welcome to the Feel Good Blueprint and episode 11 of Isolation Intellect Interviews. I'm your host Simon Ma, and I created the Feel Good Blueprint to bring together a community of like-minded people to share their tools, resources and ideas to help others find their great. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, and if you like what you hear, if you could consider subscribing or sharing with at least one friend, it would be amazing. My next guest is Mr. Alex Ikonn. Alex began life growing up in Russia with little financial resources, having to often fend for himself. After migrating with his family to Canada, Alex soon realised that he needed to take responsibility for his prosperity and began his humble beginnings working in a bank to moving to an entrepreneurial mindset. After trying out some business ideas, Alex eventually started up Luxy hair with his partner Mimi, creating something that would eventually bring them financial freedom. Alex and Mimi now reside in London with their daughter Alexa and are solely focused on their business Intelligent Change, known for its 5-minute journal and productivity journal. In this episode, Alex and I discuss intention setting, taking responsibility for our lives, cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset when starting a new business, and ideas for using our time much more productively. I love the way that I came across Alex, and I had him on my list of people to speak to. As you will find out in this episode, I tell a story of how we crossed paths. Thanks again to Alex for jumping on the podcast. I love his approach to life and how down to earth and humble he is. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Feel Good Blueprint, Alex Ikonn.
Thank you, Simon, for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you on. I appreciate your time. I actually wanted to open with just a quick story as to how we actually got to speak today, which I basically stopped you in the street in West London on my bike with my partner, and I kind of rolled up on you when you were walking, I think, with a friend, and I saw you from quite far away, tall with blonde hair, and I noticed it was you. I wanted to attribute that, Alex, to the 5-minute journal, and I wanted to tell you the story. So I used your 5-minute journal, and that morning I was looking to have a really big productive day, and I remember just stopping and seeing outside how beautiful it was. And it was 2 weeks ago, and it was a really nice hot spring day. So I put
it's been like it feels like it's been like summer, right?
It does, and it's only made a change today, but it's been incredible weather, by the way. And basically, I put in the diary, I put enjoy the moment, find inspiration, and do what matters. So I decided that for that day I'd just go and hang out with friends. So I had a barbecue with a friend, and then I went and met my partner in a park up in West London. Long story short, we were riding back home, and lo and behold, I ran into you. And I'd actually messaged one of your team members that morning, and I guess if I hadn't run into you, maybe we wouldn't be speaking today. So
yeah, for sure.
You and the 5-minute journal.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I think the most amazing thing about using things like the 5-minute journal, especially in that question like we have in the morning, which is what would make today great. It really, or even things like gratitude. What it has done for me, like in my life, is that because we have this part of our brain, I believe it's called the reticular activator system, and what it does is, as soon as you start pointing out or noticing certain things, so say we'll make today great, like just having a great time with my friends at the barbecue, right? All of a sudden you're kind of focused on that. But maybe, for example, it can be like making a new connection. And your brain will start focusing on those things. And same thing with gratitude. Once you start appreciating, you all of a sudden start seeing and having that appreciation right away. Otherwise, if you don't kind of point and navigate your brain towards something, you'll actually go most likely often towards negative, because we also, as humans, also have a fairly large negative bias in us. Overall, our brain is incredible the way it works, and it's just so important to have that focus. And once you start, doing these kind of exercises, all of a sudden your whole world opens up.
Yeah, it's incredible, and that happened that day, I think, definitely. So I just want to tell that story first. I thought it was really cool.
Sorry, Simon. I think another thing to note: if you weren't aware of me, you just go along your bike, and that's it. We would never cross paths. Think about it, as we often do every day. But because you're aware of me, when you're already going down that road, your brain already recognizes and sees me, right? And same
Yeah.
thing, that's the power of our mind. And because once you become aware of something, you start noticing it. So it's just like, I think it's just a beautiful example of how these things work.
Yeah, you've illustrated that really well as well. Like it manifested in a way as well. So very good, thank you. So I'd love the listeners, just to anyone that doesn't know much about you, Alex, just to a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I think in a way, where can I start? I can go all the way from the beginning, or till now. I'll give you a brief summary. I think, really grew up in Russia, born in Russia, and I moved to Canada when I was about 9, 10 years old. My parents immigrated, but we're not, I think living now in West London, we're not the Chelsea type of Russians who come, with money and
Mm.
immigrate. We're the kind of Russians who escape for, the American dream, or the Canadian dream, because we ended up in Canada, which I'm very fortunate and grateful for. And I didn't know we were even moving to Canada. I thought we were moving to the US. I didn't know about Canada as a country.
Mhm.
And I think, kind of grew up there, but real immigrant upbringing, moving. I can't even imagine for my parents moving to a place that they really don't know anybody, had never been there before, and you're kind of selling everything and just moving to a new place, which is pretty crazy. So I'm really grateful for them. But of course, with that, it's fairly challenging. And they divorced probably within a year. They had a great marriage, great relationship, but it was just rough. So they separated. Of course, that was pretty hard on me. And then later on, of course, it just uh, growing up with a single mother, just very challenging. Meaning, she would, a woman that never had to, has always kind of had her husband's support, because that's the way it was in Russia. Back in the day, kind of the husband brings in money, and the woman kind of, takes care of the family. And here she is in a new country with nobody, having to, provide for her family, her two kids, me and my sister.
Mhm.
And so growing up, I didn't really see my mom too much, because she was always working kind of like factory jobs, odd jobs. Because, like, same thing, when you don't know the language, you're an immigrant, you're not really accepted. And then to add all to this, like, this is my all, like, kind of teenage years, is like my I had a stepfather. He then passed for a short time. He passed away. Then I had a my father then passed away from cancer. Both of them actually passed away from cancer. So in a short time. And the reason I kind of share for this is that oftentimes I think people, if they would research or they look at my Instagram or my YouTube videos or anything like that, they feel like I'm this very privileged white male that never had to struggle, and everything just came easy, and things like that. However, I think the reality is, like so many for many of us, really, is that there's many challenges and there's a lot of things I had to overcome. And
Mhm.
at the same time, the reason for my strong, kind of gratitude practice, even in the creation of the 5 minute journal, is really from that idea of struggle, and really the idea that you at some point have to choose victimhood versus responsibility, and taking responsibility for your life. And what I mean by that, oftentimes when I was growing up and life was really difficult, I would be a victim. I'd be like, how come my parents don't have money? How come my parents are divorced? How come I don't have really a father in my life? How come all these things? And how come poor me? And how come these people have it better? And I think a lot of times, right, even today, one of the biggest problems that we have in society is comparison. And because
Mhm.
people are comparing themselves, and it's so transparent now how other people live, including myself, you get in this trap of being a victim. I'm playing victim, that other people have it easier than you, better than you, and things like that. In reality, we all have our challenges to a certain extent. And with me, it really came at a time around that time, when all this stuff was happening, when I chose and I saw that I had to take responsibility for my life. That it's not about my parents, it's not about my upbringing, it's not because I'm an immigrant or I'm Russian or Or the government, or the government, or you know, any situation. It's really up to me to make this change. And that was really kind of the beginning of my journey to really taking control of my life. And I'm really grateful for that moment and of taking responsibility, because life has never been the same.
Yeah, it's a really captivating story, and thank you for sharing, Alex. Especially your story about growing up in Russia. I can't imagine what that was like, and the way you described it. Can you tell me a bit more about sort of that moment of taking responsibility? Was it a particular moment in time where you really decided to change your life and your mindset?
Oh, definitely. I think, there was a few times, and I often say it's like, you don't hit rock bottom the first time around. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom, kind of, you think you learn your lesson, and you keep going, and you don't change your habits or your ways, and then you get a little deeper until you really hit rock bottom, and you're like, okay, this is enough. Um, Pain is a great teacher. It really, they often say that we learn more from failures and pain than we do from successes. And I definitely agree to that. So it was around probably my first time around was when I was probably going to junior high school. And I recall this moment very vividly. Just walking back from school when I was probably like 13, 14 years old. And I know where I was going, right? I wasn't really the popular kid in school. I didn't really have girlfriends or anything like that. And I knew I was going home to an empty house because my mom's probably going to be working and she's not there. And not too much food at the house. So I'm probably going to make myself some pasta. Just like, just some plain pasta, and that's it. And that was gonna be my evening, and that I kind of felt really sorry for myself. When you overcome with like just victimhood, like, oh, my life sucks, and in that moment, it just really dawned on me. They're like, Alex, like, it was like, notice what you have in your life and take responsibility. No, it was really vivid. It was like kind of like a message from the sky. It was like, no one cares. And that seems pretty depressing, right? It's like no one cares. However, I made that idea that no one cares for me in a way of, and translating into that no one should really care. Like, I'm the only one who should care for my life and take control of my life for it to be how it's going to be like. And I often think, having gone through this experience, I think in society right now, there is a lot of entitlement from our generation, from millennials, or from all sorts of people. But it comes from this, I think, generation of TV and social media, and a lot of people posting highlights of themselves, including me. And then people comparing them to their life and be like, well, my life needs to be like that too, and I deserve that, right? And for
Yeah.
me, it was just more about, at that moment, it was like, no, like, you're gonna get whatever you are gonna work for and do. And once you make that shift and you take responsibility, it's very profound. Because, like I said, even in my own experience, obviously a lot of people message me, like yourself or others, and it's often, there's a lot of victimhood. There's a lot of blaming others, like, oh, well, you don't understand my situation or how I've had it, or this and that. I don't. I'm not saying that I do, but all I know that from my own experience is that right now, and it doesn't have to be the new year, like
Yeah.
right now, you
Yeah.
can literally make that decision to, like, I had enough. I remember I had several of those breakdowns in my life where I've had enough. Like, I don't want to be poor anymore. I'm like, I don't want to think about bills. Like, I'm tired of this stuff. I want to create freedom in my life. How do I do that? And then just kind of move on and take responsibility. But for sure, that was one of my first ones, is just walking home alone to a fairly depressing evening.
Yeah, yeah, it's that comparison thing is really sticks out for me as well. I mean, even for myself, thinking about, I'm just starting up with this, and if I could compare myself to like your podcast, or whether it be the Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss, it's not any use. It's turning that and transmuting that into an opportunity or to inspiration, I suppose, is one of the challenges too. Because like you
Oh,
said, no one
definitely. I
cares.
think, yeah, no one cares like really about your situation where you're starting. But I think another amazing thing to think about, even these individuals that you mentioned, is that everyone starts at zero. You know, of course, there's certain people advantages that you get, but I think the examples you said, you were the us or Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan, and those individuals are way beyond where we are, right? We just have our kind of small following. But I understand when you're comparing, you're like, well, like it's so unattainable. But especially those individuals, they put in the work. And I remember hearing stories how, Joe Rogan has been doing podcasts for a long time. And that's what
Yeah.
people often forget. And another thing is that I remember stories of people saying they would see Joe Rogan, let's say, at a Whole Foods in Austin doing his podcast. Like it wasn't like this fancy thing, and like that he got to all these guests and all these things in the Spotify deal. Like this guy put in the work often when podcasting wasn't sexy, when they thought like, what are you doing? So it's never like this overnight success and overnight thing. And it's these individuals really who put in the work over time. And most importantly, they're there to kind of deliver value. They're curious, they're learning, they're enjoying the process, and they're going with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that's so true, and I think that really segues well to the work that you put in and your businesses. We had Luxy Hair, which is I think one of the businesses that I think you've recently sold it. Is that correct?
Yeah, we sold it actually. Time flies. So we sold it about a year and a half ago in end of 2000. It was like December 2018.
Congratulations on that. I just want to zoom in on that for a moment. And that business, how did that sort of start for you?
I think the start of that idea was also Tim Ferriss being a huge instrumental inspiration for that business. And it was really from that idea of like, reading the 4-hour work week. And that's the power of some of these, and that's why I love books or audiobooks, is sometimes, or podcasts, sometimes listening to somebody can totally change your life, and it can really open up your mind to a whole new reality that you didn't think about it before. And with the 4-hour work week, and that's why it's probably the best seller to this day, is like, it's not, I think the tactics in that book, let's say, are exceptional, they still work, but it's that idea of most of us have it wrong. We are in a system where we go to school and we start working, and then we think someday I'll retire and enjoy my life. And I think with our generation, more than ever, we shifted that. We no longer want to wait for someday, and we want to be able to make it kind of have experiences in our life now, and be present with it. And this is why that book really started on that journey of that business of like, I just want to make, the goal was not to make millions of dollars. The goal was, and often I think with many successful businesses, that's how it starts. The goal was just to make 1,500 Canadian dollars a month. And at that time was probably like 750 quid a month for just myself. And if my wife makes 750 pounds a month too, we'll have 1,500 pounds or 300,000 Canadian dollars. And that'll be enough for us because we're just living with my mom, and we'll have enough to travel and do like that. So that was really the inspiration, to make a little money so that we just don't have to work, and then we can have freedom and we can travel and do things like that. Because that's what he talked about, is that you really don't need even that much money. If you go and go off to Southeast Asia and just get a flight there, like to live there, month to month for 3,000 Canadian, you can be all right, but most importantly, I think what every entrepreneur really seeks and starts with, I think many is that idea of freedom. You want freedom to just not, you know, not have to follow instructions. I was never a good student, you know. So
Me
that
too.
was, I'll say, the main inspiration for that business.
And you built that business quite fast, didn't you? I think within a few months you'd had it up to speed, and you're building it with quite sort of momentum. What was that like?
Yeah, I think same thing. You know, one of the most important things in business is timing. Being at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. You know, it's not about being the smartest.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people often forget, or having the greatest idea ever. Because I often think, even right now, what's, you know, being in the media, it's always these big entrepreneurs and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and, you know, Apple and Twitter, all these companies. In reality, you actually, like, if you think about most businesses, you don't need to sell that many products to make a decent living selling stuff online. So with us, we just were, you know, YouTube was starting out kind of a few years ago. And even back then, in 2010, that's when we started. People were already like thinking, like, you guys are gonna, you know, utilize YouTube to do social media to sell products online. And they thought it's like, that's not gonna happen. And prior to me actually starting Luxy Hair, one of my gigs was, I was a social media consultant because previously I got fired from working in a bank, and I wanted to be a social media consultant because I'm like, social media is the next greatest thing. It's the future. I want to be part of it, and I want to help other businesses get on social media to tell their story and to be able to create, you know, generate business that way. No one bought my services. I was a failure. And lucky for me, I was like, you know what, screw them, I'm gonna do it for myself. And that's how we started Luxy Hair. We're just really like, let's make and post videos online for Layla, which is Mimi's sister, my wife's sister, and my wife, because we're all unemployed. And we're just like, let's do this. Let's make content. And our product was hair extensions. That was our first business. And they created hair tutorials helping women how to create different hairstyles. And just casually in that video, they would sometimes, not all the time even, they'll use the product. And, you know, it resonated with the audience, and we never said bye. It was a very organic strategy in a way of really just delivering value. And they just made content that people were looking for, meaning they're educating women on how to take care of their hair, how to, you know, do different hairstyles. And if somebody, let's say, needed them, like, hey, wow, like, her braid looks really cool. What is she doing? How come my braid doesn't look as good as hers? They themselves make the realization that, oh, she's using hair extensions. She mentioned she was using hair extensions for this hair tutorial. So I should get some of those. And many people didn't even think it was our company. They would often ask in the comments, like, oh, so how do you guys make money? What do you guys do? Like, they didn't even connect that it was our business or our company. And like I said, yeah, we did fairly well. Into our kind of excitement, we did over $1 million in the first year of business. And like I said, in revenue, and we had to reinvest it and learn a lot. And then we kind of scaled that business to 8 figures and sold, I think, fairly early. And they're still doing well. They're really successful. It's one of the top kind of direct-to-consumer hair extension companies in the world. So it's pretty wild. And to be honest, even now, even having sold the business, I still joke with my wife. I'm like, I have no idea how we scaled and sold a business. Like many, like the reason I share that is that oftentimes people feel like incompetent. You're like, I'm just not capable of doing that. I still feel incompetent. and like,
you did it though.
What the hell? No,
yeah.
but the thing is, I still want to point out this fact to people, is that and I have many entrepreneur friends now. I didn't when I was starting out. The biggest differentiating factor that I see in entrepreneurs is they're optimistic and they believe in themselves, and they're a little delusional. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and you have to have that. And there's many incredible people that are very talented, but they just don't believe in themselves. And it takes work to believe in yourself and to give it a go and to try it. And it doesn't mean you're going to succeed right away. But you know, it's about going for it and seeing, kind of realizing that vision with those really kind of genuine intentions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing story, that business, and it brings me to the intelligent change business. As you know, I'm an advocate and a customer. It's the 5 Minute Journal has been hugely transformative for me. I'd recommend it in my training and coaching, and to anyone that might need, that is looking for something more in their journaling and their productivity planner. I learned the Pomodoro technique by following some of the principles that you followed. That's been a big one for me in sort of really changing how I do work. So given those things, you've obviously sold hundreds and thousands of copies. Is this your main focus? What are your sort of plans for the future for this business?
Oh yeah, definitely. So intelligent change is something that, started out as a hobby. It was something that my friend at the time, UJ, wanted to create a lifestyle business, and he didn't know what to do. And I said, and at that point, I already knew, it was fairly early. It was probably a year or two after we started our business. I said, don't start a business just wanting to make money, because this is what I did pretty much with my first business. Because I said, at some point, it will catch up with you, where in order to keep going, you have to either really like making money, right? Or you have to be really passionate about the business and the product and the service and the overall experience. And for me personally, I'm not like, I think for most people it's true. It's like, once you get to a certain threshold of money, like you're kind of just chill out. And that's why we don't, I think the stories we often hear are, they're really successful. They're either crazy about the experience of the product of the business, or they're really crazy about like power, fame, and really making a lot of money. Um, and and I just said, hey, look, you have to do something that you're really passionate about and that you enjoy doing. And so, what is that? And for him, he was an avid journaler. He loved journaling. He journaled for like an hour, 2 hours a day. And I said, okay, interesting, because I was always like, I love kind of advising and helping. Like, I'm really good with like ideas and strategy and kind of figuring things out. Like, okay, so how can we make like a business for you? And with time and our long walks, we kind of broke it down. There was a great book called Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker that really broke down scientific based principles that proved on how these things like gratitude, affirmations, looking at the positive, and positive psychology can really change and benefit your life as if you implement these habits. And then as we're on this talk, I noticed, hey, including myself, oftentimes the fact that I've once heard is that most people don't even read books on self-improvement. Most people who even buy a book, let's say to improve themselves, they will start it, they won't even finish it.
Yeah.
And there's a small minority of people who will say even buy the book and they finish it or listen to it. And they'll say, wow, I read this great book by Sean Aker on Happiness Advantage. And I've learned how I can implement gratitude in my life and journaling and meditation and all these things. And it can help me improve my life. You're like, that's great. I should do that tomorrow. You close it and that's it. You just get back to your habits like that you already had before. And what we realized then is I'm like, hey, I think it'd be a really great idea to create something that can help and break down these habits that we've learned in this book and make it simpler for people to use on a daily basis. Because at that point as well, what I've learned is it's what you do daily and it's what you put in your mind daily that you then shift your reality. You know, it's not a one-off inspiration. It's the small 0.01% that those incremental things that you do on a daily basis that then give you exponential returns. And the same thing happens with positive mindset, or having good stuff going in your mind, and instead of the negative and how you're not enough and all that stuff. You have to override that. But the way you override that is it's like going to the gym. It takes consistent effort day in, day out. You don't build the body of your dreams by going to the gym once.
Yeah.
It's a consistent effort. And we just realized this would be a great project to do. I just said, hey, I just want to have this product, like the 5-minute journal, in my life. And I'll say, let's create it. Let's print 1,000 of these, see where it goes. At the end of it, he wanted to create a business. I wanted to create a product that I myself would want to use, because I just understood a simple practice that I've created in my life at that time and beforehand, that it was transformational for me. And it was from Tony Robbins. Was just, as soon as I wake up in the morning, I would just think of one thing that I'm grateful for. That's it. Simple enough. And just that habit of waking up and shifting your mindset to what you're grateful for. And I did this when I had nothing. And it's often those times that you need it most. Like, what are you going to be grateful for? Like when you're a broke, young male, teenage male with no girlfriend, living at your mom's, no opportunities and things like that. Well, you're being grateful for your health and that you're young and you have the whole world in front of you. Like you start focusing on the good, and you're like, wow, like this life is not so bad. This life is amazing. and once you start kind of getting that habit of waking up with that, it really changes. So that was really the birth of Intelligent Change in the 5-minute journal. I know it's a long kind of answer to just your question, what am I focusing on now? But I'm really focusing on this idea of helping people, change their life for the better. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that over the years, we started this business in the 5-minute journal in 2013. I'll be honest, I don't think we even have worked kind of very hard and strategic in getting it out there. And we now are approaching, 1 million copies sold on both of our products. So we're about 700,000 plus on the 5-minute journal. Thank you so much. And over 200,000 on the productivity planner as well. And what I see is, including myself as, or even you, how you had benefit. Like, to me, when you stop me on the street, or as we're having this conversation now, and that people are interacting with the tools that I kind of thought together and created, whether it be by myself or with a team, and help them to improve their lives and then create whatever they're going to create. Like, I think that's just incredible. Like, it feels, having, built a previous business and sold it for a good chunk of money. I can tell you that this is really exciting. What's really exciting is, like, I remember when we sold the business, me and my wife didn't really even celebrate. Like, it was just another night. Maybe we drank some kombucha and, like, hey, that was congrats. But I didn't buy myself anything fancy. I didn't go out, because it was just more about, like, what to do next.
Yeah.
And now it's just, I bought out my business partner fully, so it's 100% our business. And I'm just excited now to create these tools for people, because I'm still amazed that there aren't more companies. And in a way, we inspired a movement. There's many companies that were inspired by the 5-minute journal and the productivity planner and this whole, like, guided journal movement. And it's amazing. It's awesome that other companies are doing it now, and they're inspiring people and doing, like, I've had 4 employees, my previous employees, who now have journaling businesses.
Wow.
which
Yeah, I've seen
which
so many
which
explode out of there.
yeah,
There's so many out in the
yeah,
market, and I'm like,
yeah,
I thought that it started with you, and you've just confirmed it, which is really interesting.
yeah. So like, yeah, I understand, like, people see like, hey, it's cool, I want to do this as well. And like, hey, if you have passion for it, do it. So even, let's say, our one, this previous staff who went off and to do these kind of things, kind of like competitive businesses, um I still, in a way, I'm like, hey, good on you. Like, if you genuinely are into this and you like it, uh and you believe you can do it on your own, good for you. And I think, the most important thing always is get inspired and don't copy. Meaning, um, you can take uh, the concept, remix it, put in some new things to it, and evolve it. How do you make something even better? And that's kind of what we did, right? We took a book and we're like, hey, instead of these ideas in a book, I think it'll be better if you actually implement it in the journal on a daily basis. And we kind of researched and took different questions from different resources and put them in this simple format. And then, now with intelligent change, I think there's so much more. It's not just about really stationary or journals. I really believe in how can we help people, especially now more than ever, like, how can we help them improve their mindset? Because I really believe that once you help people, and that's what school should be there for, right?
Yeah.
Once you help people hone and create a mindset that they instill in themselves, that is their everyday coach, that is there for them, that supports them, that guides them, that kind of gets them to the next thing, then they just create more good in the world. And I just want to be in a place where other people are creating more value for others in the world. And that's so far actually the world that we lived in. And I'm really grateful to live in a city like London, where there's incredible, these public parks that we all get to enjoy,
Yeah.
and all these things. But it's because of other people who have thought about these things.
The genuine, I think, the realness of what you're bringing, I think, comes through and shines through. That genuine want to help people is fantastic. I've got a question I wanted to ask you about the productivity piece, Alex. So, I think there's a lot of people that have the need to try and do more, to be more productive while they're maybe locked down at home. And from what I've heard in different podcasts and conversations I've had, needing to be more productive for the sake of it. Do you have any view on that?
I think this is more of an American thing. And what I mean by that is, we live in a world right now where we're highly influenced globally by certain ideas. And I think USA, and coming, grew up in Canada, we're close, but we're different. America is all about productivity and work. Europe is a bit different. I think Europe is more about leisure. I think even if you look at history, you'll see that in US, workers often protested and fighted for more pay, more work, where Europeans would fight for more time off and leisure. Now it's changing because we now have the Gary V's and everybody else. And so with productivity, I think especially during this time, it depends in your situation and for what. For me personally, this has been the most unproductive time in a long time for me. Right? And what I mean by that is for me, not much has changed. I had a lifestyle of where I didn't really have to, my commute to work is cycling through the park.
Nice.
and kind of going to, this little kind of office that we have, which pretty much is just like a second apartment where we work out of for now, because for a long time it was just me, my wife, and our assistant. And of course our teams were based in Toronto in actual offices and things like that. Now we're moving things to London. We had actually this whole plan before COVID to, like, I was about to sign a lease for nice, beautiful, really expensive office in London, hire a bunch of employees, and all that kind of pause. So with that, I took the time, although I tried to be productive, it was hard to be productive. And also the weather has been so amazing in London that I'm like I can enjoy my life, because I've already in a way done the work. So I should take this afternoon off and have a picnic with my family and see my daughter grow up and spend time with her. So I did those things. However, if I was in your situation where I was working for somebody and I got furloughed and I have dreams of creating a life where you can make those choices where I don't like I have now, where it's like I don't really need to work, you know? That's a massive luxury. I think that's and the idea is it's not even about. I know many wealthy people, even way more wealthy than I am, who still can't even make that decision because they're just an idea of, like you said, always being productive, and their identity is so tied in with who they are and their work and their title and their boss and all that stuff. My identity is just I'm a human being and I want to enjoy myself. Because that's how I started this whole thing, and what resonated with me from this interview as I've been talking is really the lifestyle. How can I create a better lifestyle for myself? And so with productivity and going to that situation, if you're in a place where you've been furloughed and you have big dreams of maybe starting a business someday, this is your time. Do not have picnics. Right? And it's hard because all your maybe friends are doing it and Alex is doing it and you're getting paid now, and it's like a long vacation. Right? You're like, this is the greatest time ever. Like, this is amazing. And everyone's getting used to it. In the US, a lot of people are getting paid more than they used to get paid in working at a grocery store, for example, or whatever, at a restaurant. And they're like, why would I, like, well, even if work is opening up, they're like, screw this. Like, I'm just going to stay on this as long as I can. And there's nothing wrong with trying to stay furloughed as much as possible and just chilling out. But for example, like in my case, in my life, when I got fired from my job in 2008, working at a bank in the middle of the financial crisis, and I didn't get fired because of the financial crisis. I got fired because I had a business on the side, and it was no conflict of interest, but it was just, I understand. They kind of uncovered that I was working during business hours. So if I had an employee working during the time I was paying them, I'd probably have a conversation with them as well. I'm not sure I would fire them right away, but they fired me right away, which was, once again, incredible. So for a lot of people listening right now who are furloughed or got fired, redundant, whatever that is, this can be the greatest opportunity for you. And so what I'm trying to say is about productivity. When I got fired and I was getting paid employment benefits, as we have in Canada, and not all countries have them, I said, I'm gonna make use of this time as much as I can. Meaning, I don't believe I used to, I'll say, see friends as much or anything like that. I was really motivated because I was really driven, because I was at a point in my life where I said, I don't want to be broke. I had enough of this poor lifestyle. It's so different. Like I don't know, my daughter's growing up very privileged. But I didn't grow up like that. I grew up I knew that we don't have money, and I knew I can't ask my mom for anything. I remember even when we came to Canada, I said, hey, I want to go to the movies, and my mom said, like, well, I don't have money, so if you want to go to the movies, figure it out. And that's how, when I was 11, I would sell flowers on the street, literally, and I would make money because there's no other options, and I figure out options on how to make money. And so my kind of long rant on this is an incredible opportunity. How often are you going to get an opportunity that you're getting paid and you can invest this time instead of investing into somebody else's business to instead invest in your own self-development. And what that means is it's not about even, say, starting a business or something like that. It can be about educating yourself, maybe taking a course, reading, in that time, or trialing out a business. So like I said, during that time when I was getting paid employment benefits in Canada, and maybe, you know, they wouldn't be happy to hear it, that was kind of that I'm on unemployment benefits and I'm kind of having a business and still getting paid. But I think it worked out for them because the amount of taxes we paid after was all good. And what I'm trying to say is that we use that time to trial other businesses because it's less risky to start to try to do different ventures when you have some sort of income coming in. Because I don't think I myself would become an entrepreneur if it wasn't for that time in my life, which was about, you know, I was getting employment benefits for about 10, 11 months, which was about $1,500 Canadian a month. And I used that time, like I said, to educate myself, to try different businesses. And when that stopped, a lot of governments have different grants and benefit packages for different people. And I was able to find a grant from the government of Canada where they'll give you about 20 to 25,000 Canadian dollars for a year to start a business. And that was only offered to people who were unemployed before unemployment benefits, right? So I used that grant. Yeah, exactly. So I was then in that program, and that's when I would try my different ventures. Like I said, I was a social media consultant. It didn't work out. I was trying to make websites for people. It didn't really work out. Like it was okay, but I wasn't really making money. And when that scheme ended, right, when that money ran out, that is when we started Luxy Hair. And that was kind of a Hail Mary. It was like, hey, if this doesn't work, we're going to go back to working at the bank. But if it wasn't for that almost 2 years of my time where I was on some sort of kind of benefits that where I was supported, where I didn't just waste that time. I used that time to invest in my future. And really, like, I'm really grateful for it. So I think right now it's one of those moments, like the financial crisis of 2008. You know, there's tons of people all around the world, they're unemployed, and I say, don't waste this opportunity. This doesn't come around often, right? So this is not, even in this time right now, I've maybe watched 2 movies. I maybe watched one television episode of a series. I've watched probably maybe 3 to 4 hours of TV in the last 3 months. And I'm being really serious, right? And this is me. Like I don't have to do any stuff, but I did take that time on picnics or anything like that. So what I'm saying is, about being productive, there's this, it's a fine line of where you are in your life. And in summary, my message is, if you have the luxury, like myself, that you don't need to work, no need for you to be productive. Chill out. But if you're a young up and coming, you know, person who has, or even not young, you can be anywhere you want in your life. Maybe you want to make a career change. You don't like your job. You don't like your boss, right? This is the time to look for another job. You know, this is the time to because even looking for other work takes time. You know, applying. You know, we have positions out right now, right? For managing director or head of operations here in London, or even all around the world. We're possibly shifting to all remote. And most applications I get and most emails I get are rubbish. You can't get an incredible job by doing a substandard application.
What are people getting wrong, Alex? What do you see that's common?
You're just being average. And what I mean by that is, you have to see on the other side of who the employer is. Because it's, like I said, when I said about earlier, I think this should really connect. No one cares about you. Right? Once you realize that, like, you know, I think I often, you know, I'm whoever's listening now even if you're a guy here, I'm very grateful, right, for your attention and for you to be here, and that you care enough to listen. However, the reason you're listening is most likely not about me, because maybe there's some sort of value here for you that you're trying to get. And that's the same thing that people should realize when they're applying for a job or they're creating a business, that it's not about you. So for me, that's another point I really want to point out to you and anybody listening, is that my life changed when I realized no one owes me anything. Same thing, going to that thing. No one cares. No one owes me anything. No one cares about my business. And the only way for me to stand out or to create a business is to see how I can deliver value to other people. And what I mean by that is, if you want to get paid more in your job, see how you can add more value to the business. See how you can add more revenue. Treat the business like it's your own. Because if you're going to grow the business, one of my favorite books of all time, and this is the book that led me to also my journey. The other one is 4 Hour Work was one of them, but the other book that I think is way more profound and is still relevant is called Linchpin by Seth Godin. And it's all about how to become indispensable. And it's actually a book that we make everybody read, whoever works with us, before they begin working with us. And not everybody gets it, but the whole concept of that book and Linchpin and being indispensable is that if everyone's getting fired right now, you know, you got furloughed, but there's some people that didn't, right? Or someone may redundant, but there's somebody that didn't. Why is it that they didn't? Because they're indispensable enough to the business. They're like, well, like, you know, we're going to take furlough this person, we're going to do this one. Oh, like, Sylvia, let's not let her go. Like, we can't, like, we need her. I'm, you know, so there's, even if I've seen this, even when hiring people, even recently, somebody was like literally laying off everybody, and they're like, this one staff, they're like, I can't get rid of her. Like, if I get rid of her, I'm done.
Yeah.
So they're like,
yeah,
I'm gonna keep this one staff. So you want to be that person who is indispensable. And I think, and which adds to another factor that I've learned from Seth Godin as well, is that you have to put in the emotional labor. Meaning you have to be emotionally invested in that role, in that thing. So when you're applying, do a little more research on potentially the founders. Do a little more research or on the stage of the company, what their needs are, what they're going through. And instead of sending, let's say, a regular CV with just your CV and that's it, figure out, find this business's address, send them a special package, right? And with the points of, you know, how you're going to deliver value to the business. Once again, it's not about you. Don't give me a life story about you, right? Be concrete about, like, hey, what I'm interested in is to deliver value. Here's how I'm going to deliver value to the company. Here are 3 points that I'll do. Here's how my first 90 days will look like on a job, you know? And it's those kind of people who are like, whoa, this person is like next level. One of my most successful hires to date is who's now the CEO of Luxy hair, the company that we sold, Lulu. You know, we took a gamble on her, but when she applied, you know, she made video answers. Nobody still does this to this day, and I see hundreds of applications. She made a YouTube video answering to all the questions that we had, because we have like a application form, and then explaining how the thing. So she presented herself. When we had to interview her, she came with an iPad, and she's like, so after we stopped talking, she's like, let me present to you how I will drive value and how we'll take the business to the next level. I'm like, whoa. And you can see why this girl is now the CEO of the business. She was part of the exit. She made money there. And you know, she's now doing a journaling business too. But regardless, she's going to be success wherever she goes because she's just invested. And that's another thing for anybody to really figure out is, for yourself, and not to feel bad about, and connecting to that productivity questions, that like, do you need that? Is this you? Are you this person who maybe you just don't care and you just want a regular 9 to 5. You just want to work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever that is, wherever you are, and you just don't want to stress and you want to just do your job, get paid average, live an average life, and don't be bothered. And there's nothing actually wrong with that, right? However, if for some reason there's something that is motivating you and you're like, hey, I want to be exceptional and I want to work with exceptional people. I want to work with exceptional companies. And the way you do that, you yourself have to become exceptional. And that doesn't mean that you have to do that now, but even that drive of like, hey, I'm here to learn and I'm here to improve and I'm here to become a better person and do whatever I can in this organization, actually be committed. Those are the people that people look for. And whether it be in driving companies forward, whether it be creating their own businesses, and that does take, in a way, that idea of being more productive. Like I said, there's stages in your life. You know, I think connecting this last thing, what I'll connect it to, and we can kind of wrap up here, is that it's this whole idea of work-life balance. And I think it connects to that question of productivity. The thing with work-life balance is that the way I see it, there's no such thing as work-life balance. You have waves in your life when sometimes you have to sprint. You have to work really hard, right? And then you can, at points, you can reap benefits. It's kind of like, you know, the way we used to be as hunter-gatherers and we used to hunt. Well, sometimes you just chill out. But then when you're hungry, you have to go run after that animal. You have to work hard. You have to, you know, like, and then you hunt it down, and then you have your meat and your whatever, and you can chill out. But even the same thing in farming, right? And when we became more agricultural, is that there's a period of the season when you have to, you know, farm the land, you have to clean it up, plant seeds, all that stuff. Then maybe winter comes, you chill out. And you wait till spring when you have to maybe do the work, and there's summertime, right? So I think seeing life from that perspective, that there's seasons, and there's also you know, different times and waves for you if you act. And you just have to be aware enough of yourself, of like where you are. Me currently right now, I'm kind of in my like in between zone. I'm fairly chilled, but there might come a time where I will have to like put in that extra, right? And go above and beyond and really be there. And it's like you show up and it's fine. Again, kind of like you have to make the people around you understand. So I really, this is like my kind of truths that I live in, and I hope it kind of helped out, you know, whoever would listen.
Yeah, no, I think it's massively valuable. You've actually answered a lot of my questions as well, so much appreciated on that. I thought I'd just wrap up with one question. I'm conscious of time, Alex. In terms of you know, your favorites for 2020 so far. I know amidst everything that's happening, there's some real dark things that are happening. What are some of the highlights you've been able to pick out of this year that have been great for you?
I think this is the best year on record for London weather.
Yeah, there's one.
I think I'm saying just in terms of like just observations and same thing, enjoying the moment. I think with the lockdown, probably the country of the UK, but especially the city of London, I'm just so grateful because it's just been incredible. So thank you for the weather gods or whatever that is. That's been my favorite thing. It's like I've never seen so many blue sky days in a city. And the summer hasn't even started. It's June 3rd. So our summer is already good. If the weather's crap for the rest of the year, I'll already be happy in London. That's one of my other favorite things. But in terms of like tangibles, or whether it be other podcasts or books or things like that, or products, I would say one of my favorite things is actually same thing. A basic thing is actually nature. And the thing that you've mentioned about, it's a very volatile year. It seems like when we already had a pretty big thing going, you know, with the whole coronavirus, now we have these protests and everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter, which is, you know, a US phenomenon, but it's becoming global. But you're just like, and the way leadership is responding to certain these things and how they're treating people and human rights issues and things like that in developed countries like the US, you're like, whoa, like is this world kind of ending? And in this time, what I've found to be most healing, and one of my favorite things, is that because we were lucky enough to go out into the countryside, to the Cotswolds before the lockdown started, and we were there till May 1st. And as soon as you get out to nature, and especially if you can get out, even like we're now in London, we have these beautiful parks, but it's different if you can get out to like wild nature, and be like in a forest and take a walk and just be there and just breathe the air and just, maybe put on some music that's non-lyrics and just connect with nature. I think we forgot what it's like to reconnect. So one of my favorite things is really simple. It's just been, give yourself a forest bath, find a forest somewhere and walk in that forest and just hear the sounds, hear the birds, and just be observant. Let that be your meditation. And for me, it helped me really chill out and just put things in perspective, that regardless of our society here, nature will remain. And we're not the main show here. And we can see how a virus can halt the whole global economy, right? This little thing that just kind of spreads. And that's why we have to just, in a way, understand and just really be grateful for the basics, like nature and your breath and things like that. In regards to other tangible things, is I would say same thing. I think music. I often find myself, I'm the guy who's always tries to be, productive and listen to podcasts and absorb information, tons of books and audiobooks and things like that, and articles nonstop. And I'm finding myself more and more, even today, as I was cycling to work, I'm just like, usually I listen to a podcast or an audiobook, and I'm like, I'm just gonna listen to music. And maybe some of you already do this, is great. Right. Yep. But I'm like, I just don't want information right now.
I've had that even today. I'm like, stop brain, just enjoy something like some music. Totally get it.
Exactly. And I think that's where it's like, listen to yourself and understanding. And in those moments of when you go to nature or when you just listen to music and decompress, you can also have some brilliant ideas. And most importantly, another thing I would urge a lot of people to do is go to our podcast, Icons, and listen to one of our latest episodes about kind of tuning into your inner self. And then me and my wife there would just speak about how do we do that and the importance of understanding what is important to you. Because right now there's a lot of noise. And even for the last hour, I've been speaking a lot of noise, right? About these ideas and how I think, things like that. At the end of the day, the things I say or others don't really matter. We're all are on our own individual journey, and we're all going through our lives on different paths. That means that you don't have to become an entrepreneur, or you don't have to become this crazy successful career person. Maybe you can be fully happy just making, I don't know, ceramics, and that's what you're into, or sewing something, and somehow try to make a living, or making some really good jam, strawberry jam. Who knows? But I think once you connect with that and you're doing it, you're on your path, that is the ultimate happiness, and that's when, things that don't stress you out, because you're like, oh, fine. Like for me, it's like, I'll do these little things and keep making, journals, or seeing of ways that like I can add to value to other people's lives. So I just really kind of ended it with that. It was just like, listen to yourself. You in a day, once you tune in with yourself, will know the answer of like what is right for you and put you on that path of what you need to do. And then you'll be motivated when you need to be motivated, or be lazy when you can't be lazy. But it's still good to have, that time with yourself.
Really beautiful ending to our discussion. Your words have been wonderful. You've been an absolute pleasure, and I've been an honor to have you on. Alex Ikonn, thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Simon.